Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Patton, and I welcome you to the Wunder Wisdom Podcast. This is number 8, and today is Tuesday, March 29th, 2022, and we're still here on the planet. Yes! And I'm looking out my window at beautiful Kelowna. The mountains are almost free of snow, sort of, and spring is coming. Oh my goodness. Yay, yay, yay. I am so pleased today to welcome Sally Arkell Boles, my good friend who I've known since I moved here to Kelowna over 5 years ago. You are closer to Vancouver and I don't get to see you as much, but I'm glad to have you here on this podcast. We're going to have a good conversation this morning because you provide a very valuable service, in my view, and many's views, to people about success and mindset, right? You are a success and mindset coach. You're an author of Acting with Intention, because that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about, is to really learn to command our thoughts and what we're doing in life instead of the willy-nilly, I call it, things that I have, running around just on autopilot. So welcome, Sally.
Thank you for having me, Chris. It's so nice to be seeing you again because I do miss you dearly. And I know that, the work that you do is so valuable for so many people. And I think that we have very like-minded and businesses that integrate with each other to be able to help people have that success and to create not only success financially or through their businesses, but also personally. And I think, as you've seen over the last few years, a lot of people really struggling with where their next step is, or where they're centered as far as having that satisfaction, but also be able to have the success and the mindset to be able to navigate through times like we've had recently. So both of us been in the best place at the best time, I believe, because it certainly is something that's so needed right now for so many people that I get to work with. And I'm sure it's the same for you.
Yeah, I do too. I'm so glad to be in the space that I'm in and to be able to guide people or just provide information on how to create more of what we all want and less of what we don't. Really, that's what this is about. And yeah, you mentioned the last 2 years with everything that's been going on. We've really been conditioned. We've really been conditioned all our lives, in my view, to be small, right? To trust that something or someone outside of ourselves has our best interests at heart, that knows better than us what we need or want. And that's a bunch of crap. And of course, lately, sorry, is that a proper word to use on online? I use worse ones.
It's your podcast, it's okay.
Yeah, I can do whatever I want. I'm watching this hair. What is going on? Stay there. Thank you.
Don't move.
Yeah, and so lately, with everything that's happened, there's been a systematic, I feel, laying out of rules and restrictions that have really conditioned us to feel like we just can't make things better, right? We can't have what we want. It's disappointing because it just gets worse instead of better. So this is really important now to bring ourselves back to that place of power. This is the empowerment piece, right? Is what can we do in our lives to change our own circumstances and not worry so much about what's on the outside. Now, that sounds trite when you can't pay the bills, but we have to understand that the world that we see is not the world that is, right? It's how we see it. And so anyway, we'll get more into that.
No, I think even from what you're saying, as a child, we're ingrained as soon as we go into the school. I'll just use that. I'll forget the parent part that we do in training them how to do things. But when we go into school and, I'm sitting at my desk and I'm looking out the window daydreaming, all of a sudden I'm told, Sally, pay attention. Do as I say, right? Get your focus back where I want you to focus. And I think, when we look at what's happened, it's really been that mass orientation in that same direction for all of us over the last couple of years. And some of us have always been that bad kid in class and said, I'm not going to do what you're telling me to do. But we also do our research to know why we don't want to do that, because we innately feel that that's not the right thing to do.
We know.
Right? We know that. And so, but yet there's others that are, wanting to follow that line. And there's so many of us that are doing that. And we probably all do it in certain aspects of our life, but do we need to do it today and to the extent that we're doing it? And so looking at how can we change our mindset and our behaviors, which are really based around paradigms, right? Because our paradigms are ingrained in us, they're habitual habits. And so we want to make sure that we're looking at those paradigms and saying, let me question this as to, is this the right thing for me today?
Right. And I love that. Become more present. Is this the right thing for me today, moving forward? It doesn't matter what we've chosen. When we choose the best thing for ourselves, that is good. Exactly. And no one has any right to say yes or no, or you're good or bad or whatever. So yes, what now? That's the question. What now? What do I want for myself now? And how can I create that? How can I leverage what I already have and what I already know? Right? What can I use in my body that creates something?
Yeah, I know that a lot of my clients have got to the point where they've had to adapt to a different work situation in the last 2 years. And now they're really thinking, do I ever want to go back
to
the way it used to be? Because at the beginning we were like, get me out of the house. I don't want to be in the house. I want to go to my work, close the door and come home and know I'm at home. And they started working from home, or they had to become entrepreneurs or find other ways of earning income because their incomes were cut off because they couldn't go to work. And so I think when you look at those elements of it, it's like, what do I want to really do now that's going to bring me that joy, that's going to bring me that self-satisfaction and create the life I want to create for myself. And a lot of people are really struggling right now on, I really want to leave that full-time job, but I don't have the money, but I've got this side job that I'm doing and I'm doing okay there, but I'd really like to do this, or I'd like to bring my husband home from traveling all the time for his work, or to get him out of that heavy labor because he's getting older. So what can I do to change that? And I'm hearing a lot of that right now. I don't know if you're hearing that as well, but people are looking for change.
Absolutely. And you triggered me to think about, what's the good that's come out of the last 2 years? That's what we fail to recognize often, is what's the good that's come out of it? And the one good thing is that it has forced us, kicking and screaming in many cases, to pull out every tool that we have, every creative piece, every piece of resistance or drive to do more, well, just to survive sometimes, to do more to survive, to do more to thrive. So I feel like there's more of an impetus these days to go from surviving to striving and ultimately to thriving. And there is a way to do that. So I'd like to start with more about you. Tell me about your experience in the financial industry.
Sure. So I was a managing partner within financial services. And I did that for about 13 years. And it was a really interesting journey because I was not from that field at all. I had been a director of other companies outside of that industry. And I actually have transitioned about 3 or 4 times to completely different industries, having to learn them, but always been able to be successful with it. And when I went into finance, it was like, okay, so let me see what's going on here. And I had the opportunity to work up into a higher level within the organization. And I really saw that the value that offered to people, but at the same time, the business structure was good for some, but not great for others. And so a lot of it was entrepreneurial based, and a lot of it, there wasn't a lot that was salaried, let's say, versus entrepreneur. And so it was a great environment, but at the same time, I think there's gaps today. People were looking for security, trusting the systems, trusting what was going on within the systems to be able to build their futures.
Right.
And I think that's something also that's changed in the last few years, where people were saying, well, geez, I'm not going to be able to control that as much anymore. So I want to make that change. And so when I made a change 2 years ago, it was actually just 2 months before everything changed in our world that I chose to leave the organization. But it was definitely something where, I was able to really work with entrepreneurs, help coach and develop them, teach them leadership skills, teach them how to be able to be successful in business. And honestly, most of the people that struggled, it was just their mindset. And the people that were successful, had a really powerful mindset. And so identifying those elements of it from within that coaching environment that I was with, and that business development role I was in, really allowed me to, when I left the business, to say, I knew there was something missing in what the corporate world was offering, right? And so when the corporate world was offering training and development and, you know, the how-tos, it really was all do this, do this, do this, you'll get that. And so it was really basic to do's, how-tos. And there wasn't mindset around it. There wasn't a mindset around how do you approach a client and ask them for an appointment other than just some scripting. It wasn't talking about how to change your mindset on how to approach somebody and attract them into wanting to work with you, right? And likewise, there was a lot of different elements like that, that I knew there was a lot missing. And at the time, I knew there was a big opportunity there and a gap. And I thought, I wasn't feeling comfortable because I actually had moved out of province. And so I wanted to make that change. Was able to have a good operation or a good opportunity to leave the organization. And then I went seeking for what was that big change and where was it? And the biggest thing that I found was how their mindset was the determining factor to their success, and not just in their business, but also in their life. And if they struggled with their mindset, they struggled in their business. And so I'm so happy that I found an opportunity to be able to do that and work with clients on both elements of their life, their business and their personal, but really surrounding their success and their mindset.
Yeah, very good. And you know, you live what you speak.
Mm-hmm.
You truly live what you speak. And I've known that about you since I've met you. You are entrepreneurial to your core.
Mm-hmm.
Probably didn't realize it at the time when you started in business, but you've had that mindset. And I was going to use the word, you've reinvented yourself, although, you know, what you're doing is kind of in the same area. It's just a different flavor, I think, but I'll say it anyway. You've had the courage to step out. You've had the courage to reinvent yourself or to create something new from something known.
Yeah.
You're really good at that. And the other thing you're good at, Sally, is you're helping people see their strengths and what is possible, what they're capable of. You have this gentle, knowing presence that is very powerful. And that's the type of thing, in my view, in my work, attracts business, attracts clients, right? This is the attractor factor. This is not just following a system out here. When you do steps 1, 2, 3 to 72, something's going to happen. Because until you identify with whatever's on that list, it doesn't happen as well. And even more so, I have found having a knowing about something like that isn't right.
Yeah.
You know, and we all have that knowing, and we have to respect that, because that's our body, that's our instrument talking to us about what's right for us. It doesn't matter what's right for 7 billion plus other people. What matters is what's right for us. And when we can get deeply into who we are, what we believe, what we think, who we are, shine our light, that's when we attract like-minded souls, generally, I'm finding. And until you get to that place, it can be a bit of a struggle knowing what is for me, what is right for me, how do I do this, and why would somebody hire me? And I think that anybody who hires you is going to benefit greatly from that, because what happens is we aren't using our minds.
No.
We aren't using this instrument enough, paying attention, being present and focused to be able to bring in more of what we want. And so that's what, let's talk a little bit about mindset. What does it mean to you, and what do you teach?
Sure. So I agree with everything that you just talked about as well, because it really is, you know, I like to equate even the feelings that you're talking about in the body to those of us that are rushing to get up in the morning, rushing to get our coffee down, getting showered, running out the door, feeling like we have to do all of these things. And yet we're so disturbed inside, just even to show up at the door sometimes when we get to that office, right? Knowing that we're not going to be happy. I had a client the other day said her boss hates her, yet she has to show up for work every day. because she doesn't feel there's another option. And so that is really scary to me, that people are so tied up inside with the stress of, and she drives an hour to work each way, so the stress of doing that. And, I can imagine driving to work for an hour with the fear and the anger and the, not knowing how my boss is going to treat me, or feeling that she doesn't appreciate me at all, what that feels like. And then you got to sacrifice 8 hours of your day when you get there to only turn around and drive home and replay it in your mind, right? And one thing I noticed about mindset is that 90% or more of our thoughts, probably 100% most of the time for most people, are replaying situations, which is the past. And they sit in the past and they can't change that past because that past is gone. Even the last minute we just spoke, it's gone. I can't change it, but I can go forward and create a new mindset for whatever's coming up. And, working with clients that closely, and you hear their barriers, and yet they feel so tied to it. And their stomach's going like this. And when they go to bed at night, their thoughts are tied, and then they wake up and they have a hard time getting out of bed. Why? Because their body's telling them, why do you want to put yourself in that struggle again today? Why does your body want to show up somewhere where your heart's telling you this is not for you, where your mind is telling you this is not for you, where your body is reacting and saying this is not for you? Right? So, and I know you do a lot about the heart math, and I'm sure you see this too, but that's what we do to ourselves because we feel we have to. We don't have choice.
Yeah. And that's what we've been conditioned to think, is we don't have choice.
Absolutely.
And when we buy in 100% to what we've bought into, this is how it is. This is how life is. This is how work is. This is how my job is. This is how people are. We get stuck in these mindsets that we create, right? We don't even investigate the possibility that something could change. And, and we wonder why we're sick. I remember when I was practicing law, oh my goodness, I would start to feel queasy, literally in my belly, and then stressed out Sunday afternoon, knowing that I had to go to work on Monday.
Yeah.
I practiced law for 8 years, and it just wasn't good. And I even, oh my God, I don't know who can identify with this, but I even fantasized about being hit by a bus or something. And I wouldn't have to go to work. I wouldn't have to go to work. Like but I know I've talked to a lot of people, and people have had the same, thinking and ideas. And, on that point where you say, we ruminate on the same topics. I mean, the evidence from neuroplasticity supports that. Our ways of thinking in the brain, there's the brain and the mind, whole different thing. That's a topic for another day, but the brain is chains and clusters of neurons, and they are memories and thoughts, right? And this is what ignites in our brain, and are so well worn. These patterns are so well worn that it's easy to slide back into whatever those feelings are. And again, habits just harden that, right? Time and time again. So we have to be aware that can change. The idea of neuroplasticity. So neuro meaning your brain. Neurons are the cells endemic to the brain in the spinal column, which carry messages in the body, electrical impulses. And plasticity meaning malleable, changeable. We can actually change not just our thoughts for no reason or for any reason, but we change the hardware of our brain and then make those pathways more familiar. Then they become the hardened memories and the hardened practices and habits of what we do. I want to talk for a minute about, and I've said this a lot recently in my work, whether it's podcasts or articles I write or people I talk to, but and I just learned this. Maybe sold material to somebody, but Andy Puddicombe is the founder of Headspace, and he's a monk. He's been a monk for a long time, and he's all about meditation. That's what Headspace is learning to use the mind properly. And what he says is that, and this is staggering in my view, 47% of our days are spent in distracted thoughts. And most of those thoughts are negative, are of what we just spoke about, that negative feedback loop that goes around. That's almost half our day. Half our lives are wasted when we could be learning to direct our thoughts. Now, in heart math, we talk about, that physiological response, that stress is a physical condition in the body. And the three big players that participate in that is the brain, the autonomic nervous system, and the heart, in no particular order, because they all will feed whatever loop you create within it. Now, you can interrupt it. Heart math tells us, and studies show in the field of neurocardiology that you can interrupt that negative feedback loop for ease of describing the process, right? With creating new heart rhythms. And so that's what heart math is about. But yeah, we're so bound up. And here's the problem. We have this badge of busyness.
Yes, we do.
Right? We have this badge of busyness, like it's cool, it's an honor to be important and to be busy. And to a certain extent, I understand that. It's good to be fulfilled. It's good to be doing what you want. Success, the general definition is about having money, power, and stuff, and doing the things you like. And I get that, and that's cool. It's when you feel bound to the process, like you don't have choices, like you're not calling the shots, right? Like this isn't about you, you're following someone else's power or script or control over you, that feeling just becomes one of, it's sick. You just feel sick, and it's really not one to create from. So mindset, you talked about mindset, and that is to create more thoughts, I would think, around what it is you want. But often we don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
What do I want? I used to speak to crowds, and I'd say, hey, put up your hand if you know what makes you happy. Do you know what happened?
No hands.
Sometimes nada. Sometimes nothing. We're not, like the daydreaming thing that you said, right? Is sitting in school, looking out the window and just wishing you were somewhere else or doing something else. And we're told, don't do that. We've been told as kids, it's been beaten out of us. That's the imagination piece. That's the creative piece. That's where we create our ideas about what we want and who we are and all of that. But we don't have this innate, many of us, not all of us, don't have this innate ability cultivated or curated, created within us. So let's talk about that.
Sure, I can talk about my own experience with that just this last year in actually studying mindset and actually learning more about those negative patterns, those negative thoughts that you're always thinking about. And the awareness that it brought to me to think when I was going to bed, I'm saying so many negative things to myself, and I am an optimistic, positive person.
Yeah, me too.
The amount of things that I was saying to myself when I was worried going, when you go to bed at night, your mind starts to slow, or your body slows down, your mind slows down, and that's when you see it here a lot. But I was also finding it during the day. And so I thought, gee, what can I do to even interrupt this? Like you said, let's interrupt the pattern, because if you don't interrupt the pattern, you'll never stop it. So I automatically would say to myself, cancel, and then I'd replace it with the opposite of that, what I wanted it to be. And so a very simple tweak, but it's taken me about 6 months to change that, so that I do go to bed not thinking anything that is going to make me feel like that's from the past. That was a feeling I had yesterday. That was a feeling that I had a year ago. That's the feeling that was a moment ago. It's not my feeling today or now at this very moment. And so that one little tweak of being just able to recognize that I'm having a negative thought, interrupt it, and then replace it with a positive as far as what I want it to look like, changed everything. And so I know that it works, and I've done it over and over before, but I was really surprised by how much negative talk I did for myself. And, I work from home. My businesses I have a couple of businesses that run from home. I'm here all day by myself. So I'm on a lot of Zooms and a lot of interactions with people, but I'm in my own headspace most of the time. So for me to be able to recognize that, interrupt it every time. And sometimes I would write down affirmations, whatever I needed to do, meditate. Like yesterday, I did a lot more meditation because I was tired. And I also caught myself being easily distracted and not focused. So I would just go and I'd do a meditation. And then I would come back out and I could completely focus because I got my head and my heart and my body all aligned again and be able to step into that. So when I'm working with clients, a big piece of that is, how do we interrupt your patterns? How do we manage those? And what do we replace them with? Because we want to replace them with something that's going to serve you and something that's going to really inspire you. Not just say, okay, you're normally sleeping in bed and I know, geez, how are we going to pay those bills? And then you say to yourself, we're going to pay the bill. That's not really inspiring. You want to make sure you have a bigger goal and a bigger vision to be able to guide you toward whatever it is that you're wanting to work toward. But those little pieces that you're planting all day and all night can affect you so much in your day-to-day and your performance.
Oh, it's true. And on that point, it truly is a numbers game. It truly is a numbers game. When we can take 47% of our day and reduce that, or in other words, or add to the time that we are actively creating. And on that point you talked about before you go to bed, because the subconscious, now here's a whole other topic for another day, because the subconscious runs over 90% of our not only internal processes, like our digestion, our breathing, imagine if you had to think about breathing, blinking, and swallowing for 12 seconds.
Or even what happens in our digestive system every day without thought.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool system, I'm telling you. But the thing is, it runs over 90% of our life, and it's unconscious. It's the subconscious programming, that minimized program on our computer that we don't see because we're working on another screen, but it's running the whole time, right? And it's watching. A good time and a good place to seed that subconscious programming is before bed and when you get up. So anytime around sleep, because what happens is, what you put in your consciousness before you fall asleep, you marinate in it all night. So you're the steak, right? Yeah. And so best time, most fertile time for interchange is before you go to sleep. And of course, during your sleep. Some people listen to apps and stuff like that. So that's the reprogramming. That's really important to do. And that's the time. And I found 100 years ago, I look really good, don't I? When I first started doing this work, God,
I wouldn't be surprised if you were doing this work 100 years ago either.
I think thousands, but that's another topic for another day.
That's another session too.
Geez,
we're going to have a series.
Yeah, this will be a series you and I are creating. I went to this thing one night because I was curious, and it was about this, law of attraction and how to create more of what you want. And this is what stuck with me from that. And the person said, like the Eckhart Tolle thing, become the watcher of your thoughts. This guy said, watch your thoughts for 2 weeks. And I thought, okay. So I thought myself to be a pretty happy, optimistic, successful, in my terms, person. I was horrified. Every time I checked in, I was like thinking about how bad I felt, or who I didn't like, or what I didn't like, or what I didn't want to do. And that was a huge wake-up call. That was the biggest wake-up call for me. Like, chick, you got to do something to change your life. You got to spend a little more time thinking more positive thoughts. So that really struck me. And again, because it's the numbers game, it's like, and I've said this before, again, 100 times on my podcast, etc., but it's the law of sensitive dependence. And it's the idea that a cruise ship, even 1 degree off compass, eventually ends up 100 miles, hundreds of miles off course, right? So little things that we do in our day that are not focused, are not careful, are not intentional, are not in support of us, takes us off the path. But we can reel it in by changing the compass, right? One step at a time. And like you said, it took 6 months before you knew a difference. Probably was the same for me. It might even be years. But the point is, if you don't start now, it will never happen. Like, don't be discouraged, because what's the other alternative? You stay where you are. You stay in your current mindset. You stay in your current circumstances, that state of disappointment, that state of not being happy, that's whatever it is that we're feeling, that disempowered state. So it's taking the small steps every day, and incremental success is what builds ultimate success. On that point, Sally, the meaning of success to you, can you talk around that, or something that's happened in your life? You know, I talk about success in my book, Showing Up, Becoming the Me I Want to Be, and it has to be an individual definition, but we have agreements about what success is. Have you got some thoughts around that?
Well, I think in working with so many people over my whole career, because I've always been in leadership and working with people, everybody's got a different definition of success. But I also believe that most people limit themselves on what their definition of success should be.
Very good.
Because there is infinite possibility, and infinite possibility for everybody. It's just a matter of whether we want to believe that and create that for ourselves. So I believe when you're looking at success, to me, there's two different parts. There's my business or career, or what I've chosen to offer back to serve the world.
Yes.
And then there's also what I've chosen to create within my life or my family and my home life. Because there are, like, I know I'm very different at work than I am at home. And I always have been. And it really resonated with me one year, because I was quite high up as a director in an organization. And my husband's buddy had come over, and I was just the normal person at home. And he says, she doesn't act like she's like that kind of a person. Right. And it's like, no, because I was able to separate it. And I think that's also a big piece that some people don't understand, is how to separate their career from their personal life and be the person you need to be when you're with your family, your friends, and create that different piece. Because guess what? Why do so many people struggle when they leave their careers for retirement, or they choose to retire early, or they choose not to retire because they own this business or this success as their identity, right? And they don't have another identity within their personal life and their family life. And so it's very difficult for people to understand how to have that understanding of what success should look like here versus here, right? Business versus family, career versus family. A lot of people will just look at financial as success. Well, that's just a measure. That's a report card.
Yeah.
Right. And I think when we look at success, we always look at people based off of, oh, look at that house that they have. They must be financially wealthy. They're successful. They could be successful financially, absolutely, but it's just a report card. What are you doing? Maybe you have an amazing close-knit family that all love to be together and gather for all the events, and your joy is created from that. Is that not wealth? Mm-hmm. Right? So I think we have a really distorted view today on what wealth is, or what our balance is within our lives, and what success is defined as. And so each individual has their own definition of that. But I truly believe when they actually go through mindset coaching and development, that it becomes very clear to them what is the biggest driver in their lives, because they'll choose that, and they'll see a vision of what that would look like, and they'll feel the feelings that will be associated with it. So if it's, you know, I just want to have a joyful retirement or a joyful life today, and just be present in every moment, and really take in all the beauty of the world and the people, and really embrace that, then they'll be able to have that true success themselves, because they'll feel that in every single moment of their day. And they'll wake up joyful. They'll play joyfully all day, and they'll go to bed joyfully. So whatever success will mean to them will come in many different ways. But to me, that's what true success is being able to, you know, really embrace that and live that every day.
That's beautiful. Gosh, I can't even begin to, there's nothing I would change about what you just said. That's beautiful. You know, it leads me to think that there's something within us, something within our being that transcends everything.
Yes.
That shows up as the leader in any situation, but it's all because we are fed. That inner being, that higher self, our soul, whatever it is you want to call it, is fed.
Yeah.
Right? Is fed. And I love that you brought up the leadership aspect. because success, to me, success leadership is a felt thing. I find since I've been learning heart math and practicing, and even before that, I have felt the inner quality of things is more important. So that's how you know what your success is. It is health, wealth, and happiness.
Yeah.
Right? It's all of it. Of course, we've been conditioned to think that things outside of ourselves, of course, juiced with money, we can't live a life on earth without money. And that's the unfortunate circumstance that we have created as mankind here on the planet. But that's a consumerism thing.
Yes.
Right? Now, to chase goals outside of oneself, they might agree, they might not. And one of the topics that I covered in one of my articles just after January had come and gone, and that is the idea of New Year's resolutions, right?
Yes.
Creating goals. And in the study that I looked at several studies, but the one that I found most interesting, and it was a newer study, which is, I liked it. And it found that people abandoned their goals within, like, I think January 12th or something was the magic day when it was like, it was all over. So maybe you had a good 12 days or 11 or 10 or whatever it was. But when you examine what you want, because it's really what we're talking about here, is like what you want. When we attach to other outside societies, other people's ideas of what we should want, and they don't identify with what our soul needs, we don't achieve them. And I think we abandon them often because we don't create the discipline around it, or maybe we don't want it enough, but it's because there's not a match. There's not a resonance for example, wanting to lose weight. I use that. I forget the 5 whys.
One of the biggest resolutions.
What's that?
One of the biggest resolutions people make in January.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's you make more money and lose weight or be healthier. Yeah, exactly. You have to go 5 whys deep. WHY. Whys deep. Why do I want this? So I think this is really about asking ourselves what we want, but then why do we want that? And if it doesn't match with how we want to feel, then it's not going to be something that we dedicate our thoughts to. We're not going to spend the time doing the things, saying the things, whatever that's going to get us there. And you're right. That's our identity. This whole thing is about self-knowledge and self-awareness, because that is key. Know thyself. That's written on a pillar in Greece, in the Oracle of Delphi. In Delphi, know thyself. It's been wisdom for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, because this is the fertile ground that we create from. We create what we need, what we want, what we desire. It's good to have desires. And it's also great. Nobody's knocking having money and having things, because they will enhance your life. You can buy the books, you can take the trips, you can meet new people. You have this beautiful experience in life, because as it's set up necessarily, if you buy into the consumerism part, if you don't have money, you can't do those things. Well, we beg to differ. You can create those things, but they're good things to have. It's when your goals rest entirely on that, and you create that whole definition of success around that. But again, it doesn't match. You probably won't get there, right? For whatever reason.
Well, you won't have a fulfilled life because you're just leaning toward one aspect of life, right? Or one measure of life. It's really, think about your report cards when you were kids. And if you got a bad report card, how did you feel, right? So a lot of the population feels bad because they don't have that. Another feel bad because they don't have a relationship with their loved one the way they want to, or they don't have a relationship. Or, look at that report card and say, how much joy do I create in my life? And, am I creating joy because I've created prosperity and abundance for my family, and now we're able to travel the world and have some wonderful experiences because that's what I really wanted to provide, right? Those are the types of things to think about. And so when you're looking at those elements of what is going to be inside first, then it automatically shows up on the outside for you, because number one, you're not only attracting it, but your whole body is got this energy around it
Yes.
that is attractive to not only that, but to whatever you're looking to seek for, to attract into your life. And that's what manifestation is, right? And so when we manifest that element, that's where we really are able to make that connection between that joy, what's going to bring us joy, where we see ourselves living, where how we see ourselves living, and then we're going to find a way to be able to create it because it's going to be attracted to us. And we can do the exact same thing with our everything in our life. And I think oftentimes we get so focused on setting a success goal that we forget about that personal goal. And just going back to the 5 whys, we actually have an exercise like that in our book. And what I was coaching people that way. And I have this one circumstance I just wanted to talk about because it was just life-changing for me and for this other person. And it's really easy to come up with the number 1 and the number 2 why. Okay, I need to make more money. I need to do this. I need to do that. But when you actually take the time to keep asking whoever you're coaching, or if you're asking yourself to go deeper to that 4th why, that's getting more difficult now, because now you're having to tap into the emotion. Yes. And the inner elements. And then when you
feeling,
that 5th why is when the truth really comes out.
Yes.
Right. And I literally had this gentleman in my office that I was coaching. And by the time we got to the 5th why, his hair changed. It went softer and not like so wild. His whole face changed. Like it was a different, he had probably lost 10 to 15 years of age. Wow. In that one coaching session I did with him. And I couldn't believe it. A physical transformation, Christy, after having gone through a 5 why exercise with a coach. Now that to me was just like jaw dropping because it's like, you know what? And I felt so empowered because I was able to guide him there to actually have that experience. And it just changed his whole demeanor on life, his whole outlook on life, and every aspect of it, right? Because he truly got down to that inner core, like you're talking about, that inner core, that heart, and what was really the most important. And so to me, that's the power of the work that we do. And when you have that opportunity to show someone and coach them through those types of life-changing pieces of their how to achieve what they want and how to really get connected with themselves, that's what it's about. It's not about me. It's about them being connected with who they really, really are. Because deep down inside, we all have that. We just hide it with all the other things that have been pushed on us and judged based on those report cards that we have.
Yeah, we just don't know. We haven't been encouraged to think that way. We've never been taught.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't fit comfortably within this shape that we've created for ourselves, right? It's like what we learn becomes blinders.
Yeah.
And information that doesn't suit bounces off. And then information that suits what we've been taught comes in and comes in strong. And the longer we do that, the longer we carry these hardened, innate, unconscious ideas about ourselves.
Yeah.
One of the comments I wanted to make was, you know, and this has been big for me and my clients as well, and that is stay in your own lane.
Yes.
Stop the comparisons. We all come here with a different path, with different journey of life and what we need to learn. We're here to learn. We're here to better certain things about our soul, our personality, whatever. We're here to learn our own lessons, and it's going to show up for us differently than somebody else. But again, that measure is how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about our lives, and what's going on in it. And to me, it's a self-love. What we're getting to, that confidence, that place of thriving, that place of success, is the self-love piece. Because then once you're full, right? Once you're full, whatever that is, once you're complete, once you're grounded and whole, WHOLE.
Yes.
You don't care much. You don't care much about what's going on around you or what's happening around you. You just, and you begin to see your life differently. And this is something we have to remember, is the eyes are projectors, not receivers, right? We are creating, we expect, we get what we expect, right?
Yeah.
We get what we expect. We have certain agreements about what life looks like, but other than that, our windshield
Mhm.
Our screen that we see is what we've been taught to see. And so quantum science backs this up. And while you and I aren't physicists and will not talk about quantum science, there are brains way smarter and different than us to learn from. And I encourage everybody to get a basic knowledge of what quantum science has to tell us about the creative process. But that is, thoughts become things. I mean, and it transforms not just within ourselves. So that I think people worry about, well, I can change me, but what if anything around the outside doesn't change along with me? But it does. But it does.
Some things will and some things won't, right?
Exactly. And they'll change according to what we're here to learn. I believe, and this is what I've come to believe through my 20 years of doing this work plus, life is a blend. I don't know what the numbers are, but it's a blend of fate and destiny. And that is the life that I've chosen to lead on this planet in my lifetime is rife with things I need to learn, things I need to experience, to learn to love, and how to be me fearlessly on this planet. And that's Anita Morjani. I talk about her all the time, dying to be me. The only thing we have to do in this life is to be fearlessly ourselves. So it's discovering what that is and actually living it, letting that light shine. That's the destiny fate part, in my view. And it could be a matter of semantics, but that's combined with how do I create what my soul wants? How do I color the path that I'm trotting on? Like, I feel like we're walking on this black and white tapestry that is our lives. The codes are all there, reaching out ahead of us, and we're walking that path. We may stray off it a little bit, but we come back, but we stay on it generally, but we color it. We bring it to life with the music, the soundtrack of our life. The music of our life. Is it bright colors and neon colors or whatever you like, or is it muted? And is it shadows? And is it dull colors? So how are we creating that soundtrack of our life, the music within us? And that is definitely the feeling sense of us. This helps us get there. This helps us get excited. Can I just tell one more story? Or do you want to respond to that?
Nope, go ahead.
I talked about this at my March 19th event, my live event. And it was using heart math in a creative process, how to manifest more of what we want. And really important to understand, again, to reiterate that it's the thoughts that get us there. And when we desire something, even life in a general sense, Mike Dooley talks about, you want to create your general ideas about, I want to have a beautiful partner to travel with. He always says that. I want to have a thriving business helping people. You're not saying what it is, or I have to have this by a certain time. I have to make this much money. It has to look like this. No, that's not up to us. And Abraham Esther Hicks talks about this too, is the general brush of what we want to experience allows the universe to give, to help us create more of that, right? But it's the feeling of it that pulls the trigger. It's the feeling is the prayer. So Greg Braden, in his book, The Secrets of the Lost Art of Prayer, a little powerful book. I recommend everybody buy it. You're welcome, Greg. He tells two stories that I think are very, very moving. And the first one is when he got to a monastery, some 12,000 feet above sea level in Tibet, and he spoke to the abbot. And in this particular story, he says, he asked the abbot, what are you doing? Like, are we seeing your prayers, with the bells and the chimes and the gongs and the chanting and all of that stuff? And the abbot said, you will never see our prayers. That's just what we do to get us into that space. And he said, feeling is the prayer. Feeling is the prayer. The most poignant story in that book, in my view, is the story of Pray Rain. So what Greg talks about is going out into the middle of the desert at a time with his indigenous friend who Greg thought his friend said, I'm going to pray for rain. It had been particularly dry in that area. So Greg went with him and they got to the stone circle, and his friend took his shoes off, went into the middle of the circle, got really quiet. And he said it didn't last very long. It was maybe 10 or 15 minutes or something like that. And he walked out and said, okay, let's go. And Greg said, what just happened there? Like, I thought you were going to pray for rain. And what his friend said was, never, I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
I don't want to destroy anything that Greg talks about, but he says, never pray for something, because here's the land of counter intentions, right? When you pray for something, it is not in your life. There is lack, there is loss of it. And what you're communicating with your emotions, your feeling, is that lack and that loss. And that's what the universe hears. That's what the universe goes, oh, that's what you want. Coming right up.
Yeah.
Right. So the trick is to pray rain. Pray rain. And I'm going to say it 3 times. Pray rain, pray rain, pray rain. I want people to remember that. And that is to imagine it is raining now and has rained. And what he said was, I felt the rain in my, I think is what he said. I felt the rain on my skin. I stood in the street and I felt the water rushing by my feet. I could smell the smell of rain on the concrete structures in my village. And I saw the fields of grain waving in the wind because we'd had so much rain. This is the stuff of the creative abilities from what I understand and what I end up doing for myself. The biggest, so I had to learn that.
Yep.
And the biggest obstacle for me is remembering to do it, because you get busy in your life, right? And then you go, oh, crap, I didn't spend much time today. You know, I was probably in that 47% of la la land, just, I don't know, thinking whatever. And so it's, maybe we set our phone every hour. I don't know what you do. Certainly before bed and as you wake up, because you will set the tone, right? You'll set the tone for your day. You set your subconscious. But it's the feeling, but using all of your senses. What is it? What's the movie you're walking in? Because you're the actor, you're the director, you're the screenplay writer, all of that. And what do the senses take note of? What do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel? All of that. But how do you feel? That was a very long-winded diatribe, but I am now finished, friend Sally.
But that's the thing though, right? We can have our conscious thoughts. And our conscious thought might be focused towards something that we want to create, which is great. But the subconscious will only accept
what matches.
Feels, right? If it feels. And so the subconscious can only, in my understanding, the subconscious can only accept. It can't reject. So whatever you put in, if you're still saying, you know, I really want to be able to create this success for my family financially, blah, blah, blah. But yet internally, you're feeling that
that'll never happen,
or that's a lack. Subconscious mind's just going to put a check mark beside it. I just do that because it makes some check mark beside it and said, okay, we're going to give you more of the same instead. So unless you add that feeling, you are not going to change the actions, which then will create the results, right? So you'll have your action, your reaction, the result. And so you want to make sure you're always having that feeling and really feeling it, not just giving it words, but really feeling it with your body, because that's like, I get excited about whatever it is. It doesn't matter what it is, just get excited, get that energy going, feel that it's already happened. How are you going to feel when it's already happened? That's the energy you want to put to it, because then that's going to speed up the pace at which this comes to fruition. But that energy and that positive thought that you're having has to be translated into feelings. Absolutely, 100%.
Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. Bringing everything into this moment. That's all we have, actually.
Yep.
The future doesn't exist. The past is gone. And in quantum science, all times are now. Anyway, it's a deep thought. But and the fact is that this is how we create. Okay, what now? You know, what next? What next? That's all we have to think about is that. And yeah, I think this is a beautiful way to end today, to leave people with this idea that being present with how we want to feel, with what we want to create, it is possible, it is probable. Yes, the more time we can spend on this process or something like it, depending on what, again, don't believe us, right, Sally? Don't believe us.
Exactly.
Don't try it, right? Play with this yourself.
Yep.
And just watch what happens. I mean, what harm could there be?
Yeah. And I
right?
think, you had mentioned, just going back a bit, you were mentioning about circumstance getting in the way, right? So if I change me, but nothing changes around me, eventually you'll stop reacting to the circumstances, and because you're going to be so focused on what you are achieving and creating, that circumstance, you're not going to let it in, right? Circumstance is going to be, you're going to push it away because it's not, there's no room for it anymore in your life. Right. So when you really get to that point where, you'll walk in somewhere and someone's got a lot of negative energy, or there's something that's happened, like maybe you got let go from your job or whatever it might be, you're just going to accept it and you're going to move on, because you're not going to allow that to come in and take you off of that feeling that you've now created within your soul and your body and your heart, because that's going to be a big distractor, and you don't want that anymore. You won't entertain it anymore. And
And
that's,
yeah, and it's so strong when you have created this over time and you have done it consistently and constantly. I mean, that's how we do anything, right?
Yeah.
How we parent. It's how we show up in our jobs, consistency and constancy. And this is the whole idea of resonance, right? What resonates with us resonates with us. This is where we attract from, right?
Yeah.
It's like the lover we want, right? We want this person up here with all the great qualities. The question becomes, am I that?
Exactly.
Right? And so anything that doesn't resonate, we don't see. We're not going to pay attention to. It won't see us.
Yeah.
It won't see us. Let's talk for a minute, because this was honestly one of the most amazing things that a few of us saw in our little group. So I started a mastermind group in January of 2018. And Sally came with our good friend Christine Sales, and there were a bunch of people in the room, I know, and it changed over the months, and I'm still running the group a little differently, but this was the chance to come together to create the space, to curate the place within us, to create what we wanted. That's the idea of the mastermind, right? And so we would talk about our dreams, and everyone listened and prayed for everyone in the room. And then we had a focus person, and we loved on them, we prayed on them, we respected the wishes, and we supported it. And you were part of that for years. And I want you to tell everybody what happened for you. This woman is powerful. Having told you about a client whose appearance changed, that's amazing. I've watched people light up, become softer, have more light around them as the light went on, and they got happier. They're happier when they leave here or wherever I'm working, but I've never seen the physical transformation that you saw. But tell us what happened with you and Christine.
Sure.
If you will, without too much, maybe, I don't know, it's up to you how much you want to
I
share.
volunteered, first of all, to be the first one to be the focus person. So I got 10 minutes and everybody else had 5. And so when we came into the group, I mean, I've always been one that liked to focus on vision casting. And so what I thought of it with this group when we were doing this was that we were closing our eyes and just talking about a vision. And so in this vision that I first started with, I saw myself as a speaker, an international speaker. I saw myself on wearing a red dress. I saw all of these different things about me being on stages. And so it was very interesting because it just came out. Like, I hadn't really talked this before. I know I had probably thought about it before, but not in that way. And the power of the group that Chris, I'll call you Chris instead of Christine, so I don't mix them up, that Chris had created for us was that not only did we pray for each other, but we also visioned their vision. And so we could then, other people could then come in and say, oh, this is what I saw, and this is what I saw. And so it builds on the power of that vision. And so it became very powerful. And so we met once a month. And so I said it and let it go. And then the next month we came in, and there was another focus person, and we all had our 5 minutes to do ours. And I did it again, and I saw, and it got bigger. And then the third month, what happened was people started showing up in my life that were being attracted to what I was doing. So event planners, guess what they do? They plan stages. And, I would go out to a networking group with my colleague, Christine Sales, and all of a sudden I'd introduce myself as a speaker as opposed to what I was really doing for my work. And she was like, oh, how could you do that? What if we get caught? I said,
Imposter syndrome.
it doesn't matter. I still speak, whatever.
Yeah.
And so as it went along, I saw Christine and I saw us on stages, and I saw us on an international stage. And then within 6 months, less than 6 months, something came across my desk in an email just saying, hey, we're still looking for speakers for this industry event. It was leaders in the finance business, which is what I was a member of this association. And it is an international event. We're still looking for a couple of more speakers. If you want to get your app in, you need to get it in today. So I went running to Christine's office, like, we got to get a video in. So we put a little video in. We did it the wrong format. So I sent it to my son, fix it for me. I got to get this up right away. We sent it in. That was the end of June. And then we didn't even think about it. So we set it and forget it. We went through our normal thing that we were doing with the manifesting with Chris. And end of September, my boss comes into my office and he says, do you want to speak at this event? I'm like, yeah. And he says, because you've just been awarded the opportunity for you and Christine to do that. Well, you can imagine the screaming that went on in my office because it was like, we set it and forget it. The universe spoke to us. We had an intention, we had a dream. And at the beginning, Christine wasn't really into the dream in her mind. It wasn't until later that I kept inviting her in that things started to happen. And so when we got that opportunity granted to us, they said to us, we're going to train you. We're going to be on calls with you each week. We're going to teach you how to speak on our stage. We're going to teach you the kind of material. We need to know what topics so we can help you fine tune it. We also got a speech coach that we hired because she showed up from somebody that we knew without even asking. And so these things all showed up. But then the one thing that was really bizarre, everybody immediately from within our organization said, have you got your book ready? We're like, a book? What are you talking about? A book? You need to have a book if you're going to be on stage. So this was less than 6 months from the event. And now we were not only being told to have to figure out how to be on this stage and figure out what we are going to talk about, but now we also had to be able to create a book. So
and you're working still.
We're working full time at our job. And it was the busiest time of the year for us. Of course. Right. So it's like, okay, whatever. So here I was, actually, my husband had been working out of town in Aruba for 3 months. So at Christmas time, my son and I went down to visit with him. And here I was with Christine sending me all of her draft material so I could put it all together. So I sat for one day and just put it all together, flew it off to the publisher. And from there, we just all went through the process. So within a month, it was approved. We were able to get the copies ready to be having sent down to the US where we were international. And we get to the event and we go to register and see the people organizing, and we get told, you're the first Canadian women in the history of this organization in over 40 years that's spoken on this stage. Like it was just like it just didn't end, right? It was so cool.
It's a dream. It's a dream come true. This is a miracle.
And we had our red dresses on, and we were speaking at 8 a.m. So we thought nobody's going to show up because there was a party the night before. It was packed. All of our seats were taken. And it was just such an amazing thing to see come to fruition because of a vision that came to me one day in your home, Chris. And it's just the power of that ability to think and feel. And I felt it. But I didn't just see it, I felt it. And then I took in the energy from all of those that also put energy toward it. And it became bigger and better than we could have imagined.
Yeah, it was an alignment, right? So I firmly, first of all, that is the most powerful thing that we could communicate to anybody as an example of how to bring more into your life. And I'm a firm believer that we wouldn't have ideas. We wouldn't have any ideas about anything unless they were already in our field, right? And capable of being brought to fruition. Yes. Possibilities. And maybe it's a version of that. Maybe it's a different color, a different flavor, but there's something about that idea. And that's exactly what you did. We have to give it space. We have to give ourselves license, permission to ask for what we want, and then to really dig deep into, how does this make us feel? How badly do I want this? Does this feel so right? Not try to jam a square peg in a round hole. We're not talking that. This is what comes out of us naturally, right? And then to grow that. And you did it. You did it.
Did it with the power of the group, though. And
but it shows how you can leverage the power of everyone's intentions, because we all supported you. So how it works is we all get into the person's dream as they're speaking 5 or 10 minutes, and we get into it and we support it. We send love. What I do is I send love from my heart to your throat, to your high heart, to your third eye, to grow these ideas. And then I guess it works because remember Nina went to China training skaters, and everybody had their own version of success. And that's where we started this talk today. Everyone had their own version of success because they gave themselves the space to do that.
And we didn't have to know the how to. That's a big piece of it. People are so conditioned to having to have a plan. And when you have that plan, you halt the movement. Honestly, you halt the movement. So you just have to be ready, have your vision, be ready when someone shows up or something shows up in your life, to identify that showed up for this very reason, and jump on it and take the action that you need to take with it. But don't worry about the plan, because the plan will always be bigger and better and faster than you ever thought.
Perfect. And that is a big thing.
It.
And not to worry about, as Mike Dooley calls it, the cursed hows and the cursed whens. Not our business. It will come in at the right time. It's just to be ready and to be present, right?
Absolutely.
Oh, man. Now that is a powerful way. And we've just planted our own seeds. I mean, look at us now. We're each doing our own podcasts and talking to interesting people and bringing these ideas to the world. That's what I always wanted to do.
Exactly. Me too.
To share what I've learned.
Serving others is, and helping others to be able to bring into their lives and to create into their lives that success and that mindset that's going to allow them to use for the rest of their life in such a powerful way, is why I'm serving people right now, because that's where my heart is. And I know it works because I've done it. And I have lots of tools now to be able to help other people to be able to create the same, if not more. So
that's beautifully so, Sally. Thank you. Beautifully and powerfully so. So where can people find you?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. Those are the main elements that I am. And I also have a website, just www.sallyarkellboles.com. So you'll be able to see my name. It's a long one, but that's the best places to reach me. And I have some events coming up. So please pop in and check out what we've got on the calendar, because it's going to be a really fun late spring into summer.
Awesome. Sally, thank you for taking time in your busy schedule to be here with me, with us. And if you've listened this long, you've had a really good opportunity to hear a lot of information about, how to proceed down your own path and how to think about life differently. So thanks for being here, everybody. Sally, again, thank you for being with me. I've so enjoyed this conversation. It moved me.
I always love talking to you.
Yeah, I do too. Thank you. I love talking to you, and I love how we create together and we inspire one another. So let's continue this and have a wonderful day, everyone. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you again another time.